What's up, everybody? It's your boy LondonBridge for Yacht Radio. Today on the show, remote and yet still in our hearts, Habstrakt is here.
Habby in the house.
Habby is in the house.
What's up?
Thanks for being here, man. I've been wanting to have you on the show for a while. We've been hanging. We've been playing shows. You played a bunch of Space Yacht stuff. You know, you live in LA now, which is for a while at this point, and so it's nice to find
3 years now. Yeah.
Finally,
but I've known you guys at Space Yacht for way before. I'm actually trying to scroll up on my Instagram down to my very first photos because I know I deleted a lot of really old archives and really early pictures from my account. I've got a really old account, you know.
Yeah.
But the first picture on my Instagram, I believe, was my first time that I ever played Space Yacht for you guys.
Was the one from Academy?
Which would have been my very, very first LA play at all. Would have been summer 2015.
Oh shit!
Back when he was on that venue in Hollywood that was upstairs.
Yeah.
My homie Jason from Wise Guys got me a little slot, and I managed to play a set. You know, and you know, I believe in having every story needs a good starting point. You know, and this was the starting point for a lot of things for me, for my LA nightlife in LA. At least it was eye opening for me. You know.
Yeah. Well, and that year, you know, we've been at Sound for almost 3 years, but there, you know, that venue that you're talking about, the one that was upstairs, that was the second year. And that's where, I don't know if you know that's where Steve Aoki and DJ AM used to throw their party.
I had no idea. No.
Yeah. So there's like legacy there because I used to go to those because I've been in LA since like 2003. And so even before I started DJing any of that stuff, like I used to go to their parties, and I was like, the scene there was so like, you could tell you were someplace special.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So when we started Space Yacht, there definitely was an element. I was like, yo, like, first of all, they did their party on a Tuesday, so I know Tuesday can work. And then once we got access to that venue, I was like, oh man, this is going to be epic. You know?
Yeah, that's great.
And
my culture, sweaty venues like that, sweaty and dark, and
totally.
You know.
And was that, I mean, you're from France, and was that a big part of when you were growing up? Were you going to the clubs early, or was that something kind of later in life? What was your kind of party trajectory?
I was going to parties in and out when I was pretty young, when I was like, you know, 14, 15, 16. But it wasn't really until I was 17 and I moved as a student to Montpellier that I really started to really go serious with the nightlife. I was making electronic music for a while. I was just living in a very remote countryside little town. I don't know how many friends. So besides, you know, throwing out barbecues with speakers and equipment, I didn't really, and like, you know, illegal rave parties in the countryside fields. That was my entire experience. And then when I was 17, I started to like, you know, join a team of promoters that were doing drum and bass. So it was 2007. Yeah. Drum and bass promoters. And that was we were catching up on the early days of dubstep, you know, like Scream, Midnight, Request Line and Benga and you know all this Koki, Lo-Fi, Rusko, all that era.
Yeah.
And I started to DJ with them, and I was playing a lot of dubstep, then a lot of techno and house and everything as well.
And was there like a weekly party, or was there a bunch of different parties? Like what was?
We were students. Like? We could throw our parties any day. We had this thing that was more a private thing. But that was every Monday we would gather and we would just make DJ and have a barbecue and have a bar. And I think that we always end up like 30, 50 people. But for a small town like Montpellier and South of France, that was it. That was the industry. There were people from every crew. There were different crews of promoters, and they were all gathered there. And bunch of fans, bunch of kids, bunch of people. It wasn't an actual venue and everything, but you got to realize that where I come from, there wasn't such thing as an industry. I didn't even knew the word industry until very lately in my career, when I really started to take this seriously and actually come to America and see this. But no, we didn't have a recurring thing like that. And what really struck me with Space Yacht instantly on the first night, and that's something that was really missing at home and that I was always looking for, was the way that one DJ is going to play trap, the other guy's going to play dubstep, the guy's going to play deep house, and everyone's going to love it.
Yeah.
People were just here to embrace having a good time, you know, and those era that I'm telling you, where I was helping those guys run events, and I was a DJ myself, like local DJ and / promoter and everything. We had to put the genre on the flyers because people were so attached to that. They didn't really care what name was on the flyer. It had to be dubstep night, drum and bass night, and it would be drum and bass. And if you had kind of like people playing different stuff, it'd be drum and bass, dubstep, break beats, and then it'd be like a war in the comment on Facebook. People will argue
Right.
about it, and that's Space Yacht seemed to be the complete opposite of that. It was going completely against the grain at a time when myself was realizing that the more I was going counterculture, the more I was saying fuck you to every sort of system and authority that I knew, including respecting genres and boundaries. The better I was feeling as an artist, and the more accomplished and the more genuine I felt my art was becoming. And finding a place like Space Yacht, that instantly I realized that it could allow me to just embrace those kind of spirit.
Well,
And it proved to be true of time. Every time I went back to Space Yacht, like, it's always a different genre of music, and it's always packed, it's always vibing, people love it.
that makes a lot of sense to me now when you look at kind of your history of your catalog from the last 10 years or whatever, and kind of the progression. And it's funny because I had somebody on Twitter was asking about the dubstep version of you versus the new version of you. And when I was listening back to like the whole catalog, I was like, yeah, of course, like in the beginning you're much more focused on the bass side of things. But so here's the question: do you feel like you made a conscious decision to like say, actually, I'm going to go more in the kind of the house lane versus dubstep? Because to me, I hear it all kind of meshed together on some level.
Yeah, I think I made a conscious decision. The house thing was a conscious decision to stop making a conscious decision and to do whatever the fuck I wanted. Pardon my French on the swearing, but this is going to happen.
Please, I'm French.
I feel like, like I said earlier, I was making music when I was very young. I was too poor to get a computer, too broke to even get my own computer when I was a kid. So besides using the family computer to snuck in on 3D loops, I was mostly using samplers and groove machines and groove boxes and drum machines and everything, like analog stuff. This is why you still see me having equipment in all my studios. I'm really attached to that. But it wasn't, you couldn't really make drum and bass or anything on that. So my primary genre of music was techno, hard techno, and techno house, tech house, anything that was binary, the kick drums. And then, like I said, I moved to my student years in Montpellier. I started to promote, and I think there was a huge fracture between the house scene and the underground drum and bass scene. And there wasn't really much room for me to reconcile both. And also so naturally I started to hang out with people that were making dubstep a lot more, and I started to produce it myself. But I felt like at this point in my career, I was more trying to blend in and do what everyone else was doing. And eventually I realized that something was missing. I don't think I was, how to say that? There was something in me that was missing when I was making dubstep song. I wasn't having fun making it the way I should have fun making a song and dancing in my living room to it. And I'm really proud of all the songs that I made. But what I'm mostly proud of is all the friends that I made in that community. Dubstep is such a nice and awesome community. I mean, you got the bad sides of it. You got toxic EDM Twitter, you got all that we all know, But in terms of the producers, I've met the most awesome people of my life, people that have mentored me, and have also told me that you should stop trying to make what everyone makes and just do you. Yeah. And the biggest example of that is all of the Never Say Die gang. Schism. Schism met me when I was making dubstep, and always was like, yeah, your songs are cool. I believe in you. I put your stuff out, Never Say Die. But he also always told me you could do so much better. He was always real with me. And then one day I sent him my first house hybrid stuff, and he was like, bro, this is it. You've got this. And coming from a Schism, which is a really hardcore dubstep producer and everything. Right. So, I'm really proud of that community that was really supportive of all that. But the change for me was that I started to really listen to myself and was like, what do you see yourself playing when you go on stage in 5 years from now? And how do you want to see your crowd react? And how do you want to see the energies in the room move, And to me, it was always, it's like hearing a tribal call inside of you, just go,
right.
You know what I'm talking about. You make house music, bro. It's got that thing that people either hate it, or when you get into it, when you really, really get into it, and you hear a song that has a kicker hat and just a little bass line, literally 3 elements, but that makes your body vibrate. It's such a big middle finger to all those songs that are incredible records, but have such a layer of complexity and everything. And there was an appeal to that. I was just too strong for me to say no to it. Right. So I just open my heart and turn off my brain. That's
right. But you can still hear the elements of like the earlier you in your later records. You know what I mean? Like that's the thing. It's like the French Press EP. Like to me, that feels like the turning point to me
Mm-hmm.
when I listen to it, because you do have dubstep records in there, but you have like the one with bad jokes that's like a little more housey, and
Mm-hmm.
that seems to be where like, here we go, like I'm gonna fucking try to
Yeah,
get in there.
I think that's down to the fact that it's a lot easier to learn than it is to unlearn things.
Hmm.
And obviously, dubstep is a very technical music to produce, so it requires a lot of knowledge. And I've always been pretty geeky, and I love synthesis and everything. So it was a perfect genre of music for me to use and to learn to use my skills. So I've learned so many things and techniques, and I think my brain unconsciously still applies those techniques to everything that I do. So that's why sometimes you'll hear things that tends to be overproduced for me, because it's just the way I do things. Production and writing music to me is just one thing that comes together,
Right. No, but I like what you're saying about dubstep is a very complex genre. It is, I've never really put out any of that records, but I've tried to make those records, and it is a different thing.
It's
And
very
I think
hard.
you can hear, with people like you, people like Joyride, like who come from an earlier place and are using that knowledge of how to make that complex shit and then applying it into the more of the house stuff, which is quote
Yeah.
unquote simpler, even though it doesn't mean it's simpler. I'm just saying it's like,
Yeah.
so I can actually hear that in what you're doing, and in a lot of the producers who are that kind of upper echelon, because there's regular kind of groovy house music, but then it's like someone like Eli Brown, who, like, I think he used to fucking produce like drum and bass and shit, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's like when you're
Yeah.
coming from a quote unquote kind of harder genre to do, and then you go in the house, you immediately have, I think, an advantage in terms of making it sound different. It's not going to
Mm-hmm.
be the same shit, because you're not just trying to like make like a classic house tune,
Yeah, it's a very sensitive margin that you have with house, without otherwise you fall into one genre or another. And I kind of like it that you're always at the in between. I am the first one that's gonna tell you I hate house with big serum wobbles and greedy dubstep sounds, even though I'm the one that was creating it with Jaws back then. It was just
Yeah.
us,
Yeah.
it was just the two of us. And so I created that, and sometimes I listen to bass house demos, and I'm like, I created a monster. I hate bass house,
Right. Well, then
you know. So
it gets into the sample pack world, where then all of a sudden everyone's kind of just
so does every
copying.
genre of music. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a very thin margin, and I kind of like to play with it and stay within the steps of it. But yeah, like I said, it's hard to unlearn how to do a lot of things, and I'm trying this year to put less and less in my music while having more. Emotion, vibrations, and more technique as well.
Well,
It's interesting.
when you say having less and less in the music, what do you mean? Like less layers, or what about it? Is it
Less layers, less different sounds. I want just one good melody throughout. What a good house record is, a
yeah,
good bass line and a good drum beat.
right, super kind of straightforward. But I
Yeah,
mean, but
I
to
want to
what
try. I want to try that as well. Yeah,
no, well, you definitely try
I'm
it,
not saying I'm just gonna do that.
but the energy of your sets, and like the energy of like the way that you express yourself, like it's weird. I almost feel like for you to go to kind of simpler, I'm like, that's not Habstrakt. Habstrakt is this fucking full
That's
on.
the thing. I'll never be able to go full on to fully dial it out.
Well,
And
you
if
can
you hear
do
my sets, you'll hear me play a lot of like really deeper house stuff, tech house almost, but it's always going to be between two bangers. It is always going to be a way to transit it that's aggressive and that keeps you like on the hook. And that's again,
right,
it's playing with the. It's never letting you never want to let people too comfortable, and you don't want to be too predictable, while also don't always be a complete 360 surprise at every release. So it's a thin,
right,
yeah, it's an
right.
interesting line, and I
Yeah.
think I'm happy that I evolve in a lane that I created for myself, that I can do whatever the fuck I want, which is also one of my biggest mantras. That I have, I have lots of friends and influences, but I have no god and no master, and I can hardly be really deeply influenced in the way at least I perceive myself and my sound, and the way my sound is to remain free from all.
Right.
Like I'll send my songs to people and they'll be like, "Oh, you should do this and that." It might be a great idea, but sometimes I'll just be too, an
Right.
old anarchist. I just won't do it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I feel you. Um, kind of going back into your sound, I think it's a good thing to talk about your set that you had at Hard Staycation just now. So you played one of the Insomniac live streams that just happened, and I watched that whole set, and I was pumped, man. I was in my living room, and my wife was just like, "What do you do?" I was just like,
Thank you.
Javi's fucking killing it right now. He's killing, and the energy. What I wanted to kind of comment on that was like the energy. Like you got the energy going. You know, it's hard to do when no one's there. And for me, I was like, you know what? I've seen you like probably 10 times now. I know you as a friend. Like to see you do that set, I thought it was like an amazing representation of what Habstrakt is within that setting. For you, like what was the experience of that set?
I'm just as surprised as you, bro. You know, I've seen so many DJs do sets with just their own music, and people like Sudden Death. That to me, I absolutely adore him to death. You know, I'm a biggest fan, and I've seen those people make sets with just their own music, and I was like, I could never pull that. Like any song that's sold in 6 months, I hate it. You know, that's of mine, and I could never pull that out. And then I was like, okay, you got 25 minutes sets. And it's part of a new phase that I have now. I'm trying to reconcile with my older content. It's also due to the fact that I listen to my fans a lot more now, instead of always being like, fuck you, no one tells me what to do. I listen to fans and be like, what do you like, and what was the one song that brought you into this shit, and what's the one song that you want to hear from me that's like going to be a throwback moment of Habstrakt. What is your Habstrakt story? And that's, you know, I've been better at listening, and that's how I realized that a lot of my songs that I hated were actually pretty okay. Not that bad, you know. I was like, okay, I went back, I made some edits, touched some mix downs. I was like, I'm going to do a set that's going to be just my music, minus the examples like the remix of Chicken Soup that is a remix from Bad Jokes, but it's still, you know, my original. Shout out to the homie Bad Jokes, by the way.
Yeah,
and a couple of edits with other songs, you know, like. You can edit, like I had this edit of Enzo that drops, Mala remix from DJ Snake that drops into my own song All Night. And I think I've done a bunch of stuff like that. But yeah, it was only me, you know, and it felt insanely cool. And I had another 20 more of my records that I could have chucked in if you let me play 20, 30 more minutes. So it was eye-opening for me.
Yeah.
It made me realize the power of my sound and the way it's complete. I was like, there's a lot of melodies, there's a lot of vocals, there's a lot of stuff happening. Wow, like this, you know, because usually my sets are like, I'm going to play one of my songs, and I'll be like, that's a lot of stuff going on. And I'll play a filler. I'll play, you know, and I'll go back into Warzone and, you know, back and forth. Like I said earlier about being too comfortable. This time was like, I realized that actually playing just my records, I had raised the bar a bit higher, but it wasn't too much. It wasn't the crazy aggressive that I was scared of myself. It was actually what I created, and I was really proud of it.
Do you think that's going to like impact how you approach sets going forward when you play
live? Absolutely. I'm already working on it. I bought a little controller here thanks to Twitch donations, because I set up a Twitch channel the other day, and my fans have been the most supporting in the world, and sent me like a couple of $100 of donation on my birthday, which allowed me to get a little controller and get DJing going, get sets going every week and everything. And thanks to that, I'm learning a lot more about my own music, because I used to have record players for vinyls when I was a student for years. You know, I had it wasn't even techniques; they were terrible, really slow. Like I was a student, I had no money, and then I never really got CDJs because I was always bored playing at home for myself. It wasn't never fun. Without the adrenaline, I could never DJ. I could make playlists on record box, and I could improvise great in front of a crowd. Practicing at home, you know. And now I got this thing, I practiced, and I realized that I found new things, because I can experiment things without the stress of failing. And it's great. It's weird. It's a new, I'm really proud. And I think, yes, you would expect sets that are full on my music, or at least as much as I can, 80-90% of it if I can.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Well, you've been really embracing the live stream in general, because you've been doing like tutorials, you know, while you're producing. You've been doing the live sets. I think it's cool how you did you put your picture in the corner, and then there's all the TVs there. It's like a creative way, because I think at this point it's like people are getting sick of just seeing kind of the same old bedroom set. And it's, by the way, we've only been in quarantine for like a month, and people are already over certain things, so it's important to keep pushing.
Yeah.
But
you know, I mean, people all over certain things, but also so people that a month ago, like, I'll never do live stream, they're like, oh, so what software do I need to live stream?
Right, exactly. But for you, I was thinking about, I was watching one of when you were producing, do you find that I mean, is it a different experience when you're working on a record and you're in the corner and it's there and you know there's like people watching versus when you're by yourself? Like, do you feel like a different experience?
Yeah, and I feel it's a touchy subject with a lot of producers actually. And a lot of them tell me that someone with my knowledge shouldn't be showing that much to people like that, for free at least, or even just at all. You know, to me, it's always been when I was in my little village in south of France in the countryside. Like there was always I could write music, but I was always write music if there was a homie at the back just sitting there chilling. And I have one of my very close friend named Felix in south of France, and he's an adorable guy, and he's just like me. He's nerds, he geeks a lot, he plays video games, and he loves video games. And he would come to my house and sit behind me, put his headphones, and play a Daisy, I think, or PUBG, and all those games like online. He'd connect to my Wi-Fi because I had a faster Wi-Fi than him, and he'd sit there for hours, and I'd make bangers on the side. And it was cool to know that I wasn't really alone.
Right.
So that's something that doing live stream, I've always wanted to make live streams. First of all, I always wanted to do. I looked at Twitch, and it was always it really inspired me. I went on tour with Joe's, was really big on the old Twitch thing over January and February. And that really was like, okay, I'm doing it. And that was before we all found out that we were going to stuck at home. So it was meant to happen in a way or another. And I do like the fact that people are super hype. Oh my God, this and that and this and that. That being said, I also agree with all those producers that said that you should keep your secrets for yourself. But I think I'm lucky enough to know a lot, and I've studied a lot of different ways of making sound designs. AKA I can make the same sound on that. Maybe you give me 10 different VSTs and synthesizers and hardware synth, and I can recreate the same patch on all of them. So I can explain any sound without actually giving away the fullness of my recipe and my secrets,
Yeah, I feel like that's also like there's the untangible that like it's like you can only put it together the way you can put it together.
That is my second biggest belief. It's at the end of the day, a project is layout. You have all those channels, and at the end you have master. The master is the output audio. To me, the output audio is the equal line on a big equation. It's the sum of 1,000 and thousands of little numbers, zeros and ones, which means that, you look at all those knobs put like this, they all have values, and they all, if you miss one thing in the whole result is going to be different, So there's knowing how to make the sounds, there's knowing how to put them together. But I think you can't replace an artist. You can't replace me, this fucking French face over here. You can't replace it. Like, you can learn what I'm doing, but as you learn it, my mind is already processing the next thing that I'm about to learn, and how to use that differently.
Right.
And most of me making music, it's always experimenting, which means I barely reuse the same deeper techniques. The raw way of using a synth, it's always going to be the same way.
Right.
Once you figure it out, it's the same way for everyone. Might as well get that over with and then experiment. And every project of mine is made differently, so there's no like abstract secret recipe.
Right. Totally. No, it's like.
But I also have some secrets that I don't share, for sure. Yeah. But the biggest secret is like, you got to be me to be me. There's no other way,
Right.
And I'm not worried about someone stealing my place just because I made a couple of live streams. It doesn't faze me.
Yeah, no, I feel that. So 2017 seems to be kind of like the year in like the States where you seem to have turned the corner. Obviously, like the Chicken Soup record is like kind of the jump off point. For me, like, I actually want to know, like, how did that record come about in terms of, it's a collab with Skrillex, and it was on the House compilation, or Houseline compilation.
And that's the H. So.
And I looked at it again the other day, and I was like, oh shit, there's like all kinds of people on this where you didn't know it at the time. You didn't know it at the time what was happening, but basically it was like the beginning of what we're now in the middle of. You know what I mean?
It was LA. It was very representative of the LA house scene. That was the LA music scene.
But it wasn't going on yet, though. That was with, like, we were playing it at our club, but like it wasn't like the
it was ahead of its time. Yeah,
it was ahead of its time. So for you, like, let's go just into the record itself. Like, was that something you had already been working on, and then Skrillex heard it and started working on it, or what was the? process for you?
It's funny because I never really got to tell that story. Actually, years later, I've got to tell it in French for a French interview last year, but I never really got to tell it in
Here
English.
we go, exclusive.
It happened just the way you pretty randomly. I was sitting at home in 2017, early 2017. I didn't have much shows planned. I was really it was a really quiet period on my agenda, and I really didn't have much music lined up, to be honest with you. And I was in pretty how do you call that big writer's block periods. That happens a lot with me. It's happening right now again, but you know. And Sonny just hit me up. He just called me, and we'd been in touch before. He was playing my music and everything, and he said I'm working on this house compilation. Are you available? Would you want to make a record together? Because I love your stuff. And I was just like, yeah. And I just said like, can I just show up? And he said, yeah. And just like that, I booked a plane ticket to LA, and I was in a plane like a few days later. Thank God, thanks to the fact that I didn't have anything lined up. I was living at my parents'. I just had enough money for a plane ticket, and I flew there. It was on my birthday, on my 27th birthday.
Wow.
And I landed in LA, and I stayed with him for a couple of weeks, and we made the record, pretty quick. We started almost from scratch. Yeah.
So you were in the room together working on it.
Yeah. And he has a way of working that's very dynamic, very. He showed me like he likes to stand up and dance on the music, and that's something that I love, because that's something that I do as well. But sometimes I'm just too geeky, too cramped up on the computer. I'm too nerdy, and his work on the drums was phenomenal. It's just making the weirdest things I would have never. I had a very like always, I have a very like technical, like by the book, but my book. So it's kind of a weird book to follow. It's kind of like the anarchist music playbook, But still, I like to follow it really precisely, and he was really against that, and it was a cool process. We had the record, the music made for maybe a solid week before we got the vocals done, and the vocals was a friend of his from LA that we just had him in the vocal booth, and he was just like say random shit.
right.
I think that's what happened. We didn't even track him on the actual record. We just exported the drums, slowed them down to 100 BPM and a different key, so we know ahead that we would have to change the pitch of the vocals so they would sound more like processed, like a samples and everything. Which is a very interesting technique to use, and I've used that before, and I really like to do that. It kind of denatures it allows you to don't have that too raw aspect of vocal sometimes.
Right.
And the guy just went in the booth, and in 15 minutes he was done. He said a bunch of random stuff, and I still have the audio text in some hard drive somewhere. I'll have to find them. Some of them are hilarious, but we heard that, and yeah, we just went like, that's it. Like,
yeah.
But I had a moment again, because sometimes my brain is too, where I was like, I don't know if this is like the absolute future or terrible. Yeah. I knew it was punk, and it fitted my mindset of like, if it doesn't mean anything, it means everything,
Right.
and it fitted this going against the grain, in every direction, and doing this fake drop that became such a norm in this genre of house,
Right.
And the gritty high-pitched bass on house as well, and the really heavy side chains and the CD drum. There's so many little sounds and aspects of that song that became norms in themselves. But at that point in time, I had no idea what we had made for a moment. But I trusted him so much that I knew.
Right.
And it's hard not to trust him. He's such a genius.
Yeah.
Everything he touches turns to absolute gold. And it was a blessing. It was a proper blessing.
And that became like really, it wasn't just the record, it was just the way everybody was then making their own edits of it, with the kind of drop, with the
that
pre-drop.
also, yeah.
That was a big thing that I noticed. Like every festival, every set had it in its set, whether it was the original or whether
it was everywhere. But before we come to that, the big thing also that helped was the house like compilation. I think was, like we said, was something huge. And yeah, he called me saying that he wanted to work on he already had the project of making it happen. But of course, because that got released very quick. We finished the record, we sent it, we got him, we made the mastering basically and sent it, and it was out like 2 or 3 days later or something. It was really last minute. Not even last minute, it was just I loved it. It felt like a rap record, you know, like
Right.
you're in the car recording the vocals on your way to like
Right.
Spotify to upload the file yourself, you know.
Right.
It was
Right.
literally like, I love that.
Yeah. Well, also the energy was probably like kept fresh since it's such a quick process. You didn't have time to overwork it in any way. You
yeah.
know?
And it led to an incredible summer, and we had a couple of great nights in LA, including this one house. We had a house show
I remember
one Sunday
that.
afternoon at Le Jardin,
I
and
remember
I had a back to back with Anna Luno and GTA,
Yeah.
and some other people, and yeah, it was. Oh man, that this whole period of my life, from the moment I landed on my birthday to like when I got the keys to my first apartment, it was in March that I landed, and I did, you know, I stayed with Sonny for a few weeks. Then I tried to, I found my own places to stay, and he helped me a little bit as well. And I owe him so much for that. But then I was like, what am I doing? Do I go home back to my parents after that? I just touched, like, there's a scene here that's a vibe that I just like felt with my fingers, like, and it was part of you guys as well, Space Yacht, and everything was popping everywhere, you know. And I was like, what do I do? Do I go back to my village after that? I have a visa. I can move here. I can make a life here for myself. And I just stayed, you know. So those months from the moment I landed and the moment I decided to never go back and go my own apartment in July I'll never forget those. It was a huge transition in my life. And that compilation had so many people that were so ahead of their times that you see now absolutely popping, you know. Chris Lake, I Want You was a huge anthem for all of us. You see people like Noise You, Born Dirty, Tony Romera. It was,
no, the
it
whole
was great.
thing is ridiculous. I mean, everybody's
insane.
on that is very relevant right now and
Insane,
has been.
yeah.
You know, and it's weird because like you look at it, then those people weren't, outside of obviously Skrillex, like they weren't the headliners or on the main stages. Those were probably people like who were more on the side stages, but now they're dominating fucking everything and the sound in general. You know, it's something that I'm just happy because, you know, I came into this on the house tip, but, you know, Space Yacht originally was very bass music and more dubstep oriented. So I'm happy that this wave kind of.
Yeah, but if you look at it, Skrillex was the same. I was the same. You know what I mean? It's all evolution. I think it's one of the greatest things. Also, that is about this place that is in Los Angeles. That a lot of people feel really free to let their creativity just go wild. You know?
Yeah.
But House Life for me will forever be a great memory of that time.
Yeah.
You know?
And then you also, like, during that time, you also had like the Antigone record that you did with Dombresky. You had the you had stuff on Confession as well. I felt like that like you had a lot of like boom, 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 boom in a row.
Yeah.
At a very, because, and the other thing to mention is that's right when Confession had pretty much started. Like you were an early release for Confession, which is a French label, right? So there seemed to be like all of a sudden all these stars aligning for you at the same time to kind of level this new version of you, like kind of just kickstart it into the whole American consciousness, you know? I know because
I moved here. I already had so many contacts in Los Angeles and in the US, and I knew people that were French, people that were American. So I was able to, once I moved there, make things
plug
faster.
Right in. Yeah. That's dope. Speaking of France, I mean, it's, to me, what's crazy is almost like I think of it, you know, they did the English invasion when the Beatles came. Like, to me, like it's been the French invasion on the dance music scene in the last like 5 years. I mean, obviously, like early on, you have Daft Punk being probably the most important electronic artist of the last 20 years, but fucking, you know, Snake, Mala, what you're doing, Dombresky, like all these people. And I look at like Mercer also, like I look at it and I'm like, wait, all these guys are French. I don't know if they know each other or we're hanging out, but was there, like, of those people that I just mentioned, did you guys know each other then, or it just happened to be?
We know all of each other. I think I'm going to speculate. This is part of speculation, but a lot of it's from my personal experience. Look, I grew up in the countryside in south of France, and like you said, you grew up, you see Daft Punk, then you see Justice, and it blows your mind away. It just blows your mind away. It's just like there's so many levels to what you heard.
Yeah.
You know, there's so many emotions, and it's French and it's here, but it's Daft Punk was faceless but still had the face, and then Justice had this branding and this anti-culture of the cross and everything. It was, you know, it was so much to process, but they are unreal, they are gods, they are far away, you can't touch those people, you know. And we all grew up on that, and they were huge influence because first of all, we realized that everything was possible. You can make great alternative music, picking up samples and influences from there and there and everything. So it was setting up a standard that was anything goes, you know. You can do whatever you want. But it was also very, then, when I became a DJ myself, I also realized that these are spheres that you will never get in. You'll never meet those guys. You're a DJ, but you'll always be the shitty DJ from the countryside. You'll never meet those kids. But as I moved my way into the nightlife, I met so many other kids. And I think we had a new generation in France that started with people before us, like Brodinski, Geseffelstein. We had, Pantero 666, Can Blaster. You had so many people. You had all the Headbanger records, obviously created by, Busy P, but everything that came after that. You had this generation and all the French touch years. And then we got all the kids that emerged from those, like me, like Snake and everything. And we arrived right after that. And there was no gang for us. There was no crew for us, It was kind of like, and we were a lot more connected thanks to the internet. That was a big thing. Back then, it was just, you realize basically what I'm trying to say is you realize getting older that those guys, they will all come for, one street in Paris.
Right.
And if you're not from there, good luck with anything you want to achieve.
Right.
And we grew up in a different world. Just a few years later, we're like, everyone's hyper connected. MySpace and then SoundCloud and, all those platforms are emerging, and we got a lot more connected. And then suddenly the countrysides of France suddenly rose up, and the ghettos and everything. So I met first of all, I met the kids from Malaysia that became Point.
Yeah.
In Paris in like maybe 2010 or 2011, and me and Nicolas were really fond of sound design, so we started to hang out. And then that's where I started to go hang out in Paris. And I met DJ Snake, Chami, Mercer, all those boys, and they were just there working in the studio. And yeah, all of us, they were all counterculture, very underground and very, but we could all, there was a bigger sense of community already and family. These are kids that I could kids, they were older than me, but it was easy to stay in touch with them and everything,
Right.
And there always been Snake for me has always been a great influence and a great mentor and a great friend, because he's one of those new wave French artists that's like stayed in that I grew up. I could say that I got into my own career by being close to him, and he could give me advices and everything. Right. And that's a dream, coming for small kids like that. And a lot of kids in France will tell you that we connected in that same way. Right. Nowadays, internet played a big role in that. But we had those influence, and at the same time, it was really hard and a lot of hustle to build your career and make a name for yourself. So right. I think nowadays we're a lot more stuck together.
Right.
The last thing that I want to bring the big difference is we created this French thread on Twitter. That's a group chat that's got literally virtually every French producer you can think of is in there. Yeah. So all the guys from Parlement French down to like the smallest French producer to like Bad Jokes, myself, Tony Romera, Koos, Honey Badger, and kids from Belgium and Switzerland as well, and Canada and Quebec as well. We have a community where we're a smaller country, and we're a very, very tight community. Yeah.
Right. That's incredible. It's like, and it's super random. Like I didn't really think about it until today, where I was like, wait, like all of my favorite producers are French. So it's
but you can bet now also that we all know each other and respect each other. Like there's no beef between us at all. There's nothing, Right. And that's one great thing about this generation of French producers. We're all so connected.
Right.
And I love that.
I feel that. Why do you think tectonic dancing never got to America?
I don't know. It never got to America?
No.
Really?
Well, no, the reason I brought that up is I was watching those videos today because I remember this. You might not remember. Like you came to the.
I do remember.
You came to Space Yacht, and you look at me. You're like, man, you look like a French teenager right now. I guess I had like a sling bag, and I was like, I don't know, I had all the thing, and then I was like, oh, that's actually kind of like the tectonic dancers. I feel like I want to bring that shit. I got to do a video.
Oh, that was a vibe.
I know it's older.
The haircuts and the tattoos and everything.
Yeah.
I'm actually pissed because I gave myself a tattoo on my arm when I was a kid. I was like maybe 13, 14. I made a little star on my arm, like 3 little stars. I was born one day. I just poked it with a needle. Don't do this at home, kids.
Don't do that.
And 6 months later, Tectonic was blowing up, and every kid was like wearing stars, and stars was like the Tectonic thing. And everyone thought I had a Tectonic tattoo. I'm like, do you see what I dress like, bro? I got like fucking dreadlocks on my face. I've got like, I'm dressed in ripped jeans, and I'm a skater punk, like,
Yeah.
And
I feel like
I have a lot of things that I'm not proud of the way I dress, and like I have a lot of like old files on me, but I was never tectonic. I know a few people that were though, and
yeah.
oh,
It's
dude, the haircuts,
I
the
feel like
fucking tee, man.
I feel like the dance, it's different than shuffling, but shufflers are kind of like the American version of the tectonic thing. It's different because tectonic
Yeah.
has the voguing, like the arm stuff.
Yeah, but it was
I don't know.
so the thing about tectonic back then, and I think that's representative of a larger thing that's very America versus Europe, and also America versus the rest of the world, the rave scene at least, is that shufflers are not that extreme far out of the ravers sphere. They're
Right.
just people who dance at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And you see ravers, they're people that dress up in crazy ways and wear all those, the candies and the festival attires, the clothing is very elaborated, and there's an entire subculture of that. And there's, different categories of it. And
Yeah.
it's a very deep and evolved culture. That's amazing, but uh, when you go to a nightclub in France or Europe, and I think, or a festival, even kids don't really dress up. Like they just dress the same way. They have, a pair of baskets and of shoes and jeans and a t-shirt, and they just dress normally.
Right.
And they always look at America and be like, this, think this is crazy. But when I come to America, at first it was really shocking me. I'm not gonna lie. My first time at EDC, I was like, what is going on? Everyone's naked and wearing beads, and what's going on? Now I'm like, this is amazing. It blows my mind how amazing this is. People dress, they want to belong to something that much, and they feel like they're connected to it that much that they go so much extra effort to dress up and make those things in the apparel and buy it and try it. And the girls are like, help me find my outfit, and this whole community is going to help them on Twitter to find it. It's amazing. It's mind-blowing. I love that.
Yeah.
And I'm so proud that I think we are French Europeans very proud of ourselves. We like to dress up nice but not too nice, and stand up but not stand up, and we're very like, to do that. And but in a way we miss a lot of the community feeling.
Yeah.
Like you belong somewhere. It's a tribe. It literally is, and it's amazing.
Yeah.
And I know for a fact that, and even though I haven't done it myself, but if you go alone but in full-on rave gear to a rave, you will make friends, like tons of them, just because you can know which one is like the same kind of trippy shit as you. Which one's gonna dance the crazy on this song, who's gonna shuffle, and some of them are gonna do gloves, some of them are gonna do, you name it. There's so many sub genres of like.
Yeah.
And it's an art form on itself, and that's what I think people are missing on.
Yeah.
So the when the tectonic emerged over there, you have those kids that dress crazy haircuts, tattoo, extreme dressing, that dance crazy, takes a lot of space. Then you have the rest of people like us that just stand in club like this, just smoking cigarettes and looking at the DJ. Yeah. So it was really standing out a lot. So if you bring that to America now, I think it'll just be very accepted and normalized the same way as the rest of the rave, which I think is great as well, because people should have the right to enjoy what they. Rave is a free space,
Yeah. No, I even hearing you talk about it like makes me so happy, because it's so true. It's like you're representing your gang or your crew. Like I think that's why the Insomniac events are so fantastic, right? They're bringing all of the crews together, all of the gangs together, and it's like, even with Space Yacht, it's like when people see each other in Space Yacht gear, like a lot of our fans come up to me, he's like, yo dude, I work at Starbucks, I was wearing my fucking Space Yacht hat, and somebody's like, oh, Space Yacht, and it's a tribe, it's an emotional connection that you immediately have, so I love hearing you say that, because I think that's my favorite part of, outside of the music, like that's my favorite aspect of what we get to do is the rave like culture and being a part of all that together. It's very positive.
You can't put it's gonna make me emotional if I talk about it too much, but especially in those times right now at the moment, you can't put a price on. Even a price that you can't describe the feeling of like you're on a stage at a festival and you see all those the people with totems and people wearing like flashy LEDs and everything in the dark at night, and you see all those things flashing and the totems coming out, and you see the craziness that went into each one of these people making this collectively like the craziest thing ever. And you can't describe that emotion. It's amazing.
Well, and it also makes us think about the reality that this stuff is important. What we're doing, what Insomniac, what the artists are doing, it's important because a lot of those kids are just working regular jobs, and don't have Like this is what they're looking forward to. This is they're saving their money so they can go do that. So whenever I think about that, I'm like, this is literally for most people here. This is them living their life to the fullest. This is the top. You know, this will be the memory that they remember.
It gives you a feeling, the feeling that it gives you, you can't emulate that with anything else.
Yeah,
it's not drugs, it's not anything else. It's not meditation. Is the crowd and the roaring of a place and the speakers that rumbles the ground in your chest and and that and that kind of like having to put yourself in an uneasy situation where you're going to commit to standing up for 10 hours where like you're going to have to stand in the line to use dirty toilets. It's going to be expensive. Food's going to be shitty and expensive. Your drink's going to be hot and people are going to bump into it. Like there is so much inconvenience and you're going to make all those sacrifices, and yeah, it's crazy, man. It's
every Henry says this, every great party starts with a struggle. Every great weekend starts with a struggle, but then it's always worth it. So, so for you, like, what do you, just, you don't have to give me like a million, but maybe 2 or 3, like who are the 2 or 3 artists for you right now, currently, that you're looking at and be like, fucking wow, those people are making amazing music. Like who are your top like 2 or 3 right now?
I mean, absolute no-brainer, Joyride, I've watched Johnny from the moment he created this project, from literally messaging me being like, I love your Hellcat remix. Here's a new project that I made that's literally inspired by this shit. And I'm like, I've just listened, like he sent me his song and I was like, I'm never going to recover from this. This is amazing. It blows my mind. And then meeting him and realizing that Johnny is someone that will go, you got to be very careful when you tell Johnny this is impossible. Nothing's impossible for this guy. He has 17 brains gathered into one and he can do whatever he sets his mind to, which is fucking crazy to witness, It's really crazy to witness. And that was a huge, from the moment I met him to, he talks about his back surgery and witnessing him in bed out of the hospital that time, and then seeing him building a recording studio straight out of the bed from a back surgery, an entire recording studio from an empty house, doing all the acoustic treatment while writing all this music, and the years and sweat, tears and blood that went into making this album, and then listening to it, I am, it hits me very differently than most people because I've seen so much of the making of it and I've believed in it. And I'm not going to lie, at some point it was very painful even for me to witness. It was hard for me because he works so hard and he's so focused on getting what he has in mind. He's able to think of an idea and not just a piece of music, but how it's going to make you feel and all the layers that's going to come with it.
Mm-hmm.
It was beautiful to witness, and it changed my life forever. So, Joyride is, go listen to Brave if you haven't already.
Oh yeah, it's been on repeat. I know all about it.
It's
and I love that you rep that at the hard set when you had.
It was a no-brainer.
Yeah, when you did that, I was like, fucking respect, because I think, did it come out that day or the day it had just come out? The
2 days before, yeah. And I would have played so much of the album on my set if I didn't decide that I had to make a happy entire set, and I still gave him like 3 shout-outs on my set because. Johnny, bro.
No, but I think that was also, it was a good rep piece, because I think everybody who was watching was like, oh yeah, like, because we all know, that album is just transcendent. It's a whole nother thing. Yeah. And I think of that album as like, we're going to look back as like one of the most important albums of the decade. I mean, that's what it's going to be,
And this is another memory in my life that will like, I'll tell my kids about like what are the big, if you interview me in 20 years and be like, what are the big moments of your life that like inspired you forever, and be like working with Sonny, working with Joyride, I'd be like, this is a no-brainer,
Yeah.
And second artist would be, there's so many Frenchies on the list, bro. I don't even know where to start. There's so many Frenchies on the list. I don't know where to start, but I'm Mala's biggest fan. I just absolutely love him.
So sick.
I fucking love the attitude. Attitude's just like he doesn't give a shit. And I just love that. His music is raw and processed and no prisoners, and he's someone that has no rules while sticking to himself. I'm just his biggest fan, I love the project,
Yeah, no, totally. I feel that.
And I feel like, the entire Parliament French crew sitting what they do now, from remembering DJ Snake in this crappy studio, 3 floors underground in Boulogne on the ghetto of Paris. Like it was a shitty ghetto. They had a nice studio, but it was a shitty ass ghetto, you know, and they come from really those rough places and seeing those kids. I remember Chami at 4 a.m., you know, drinking his tea, making house music and be like, do you want to hear this thing that I made? And it was like, I think it was this Go Deep remix for Janet Jackson back then. That was like one of his first Chami bangers. I remember seeing those kids making those tunes and, you know, all of part of my friends seeing where they are now and how they all so in their thing. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
No, it's
and it inspires us, all of us French producers, so much.
Yeah, man. Well, shit, this is a great, this is, I think we did it.
We did the thing, yeah.
Well, you know what? This is great because we got to everything that I wanted to get to on my questions, but I didn't really have to ask you any questions. That's it's more of like a vibe.
So you're saying I talk too much, right?
No, you talk just right. That's what I need. You know, there's
That's
nothing
good.
worse than an interview where it's just like, so, what did you, you know?
No.
But I'm glad we made this work. And what's up in terms of? So I know obviously we're in quarantine right now and we're all chilling. Do you have any releases scheduled, or are you just working on new music?
I've got a release in a couple of weeks on Insomniac. This song called Show Me that was in my Hard Summer set. I'm about to upload my Hard set on SoundCloud as well.
Dope.
So I got this song coming out in a couple of weeks. I'm working on something. I was about to, you know, keep going, dropping one song all the time like I was doing, but I feel like it's just becoming too predictable and redundant for me to do that. And I want to step it up a little bit. I might go back to an EP format. I'm debating that right now with my manager. I have a bunch of songs lined up. I have a bunch of ideas. I made a song with Martin Horger.
Yeah, the best.
It was the smoothest artist to collab with. We made a banger. We made a song together. That's. I think you will love it.
He's coming up.
I know you love it.
It's coming up. I mean, I think everybody at the same time started to be like, whoa, this guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I knew for years though. I was listening to him when he was making break beats and everything. It's the Europe crew, but I got my eyes on him.
Yeah, and he's like the sweetest guy ever. He's
sweetest guy.
Great
so
guy.
I've got a bunch of songs. I've got a great collab again with Bad Jokes, my homie from Marseille. I got a couple more originals, like, you know, I might not. I don't know yet. I'm debating.
Would you do
it's
an
hard
album?
being productive and creative on this quarantine.
Oh yeah.
I would do an album, but I wouldn't just do an album with the lifestyle that I have right now. To me, I would make, again, seeing Johnny, like the sacrifices he had to make for his, I realized that to me, an album has to be tied to a place and a time. And I haven't found that place and time yet. I think for me, the setup to create an album would be that I would have enough money saved up and give up on touring in a setup that I control, not because of a world pandemic, you know, that I'm forced to stay home. Right. So in a setup that I control that has more flexibility and less stress on my personal life. Right. I want to do an album, but I think I would need a couple of people that help me to bring some things to it. Obviously vocals, a lot of collabs and everything. It would have to be a lot. But again, I would need a place and time to do it. I would have to go somewhere, dedicate myself to it, build up somehow of a team, and it would have to be something that I have the idea. I have so many ideas that I could put into it. I'm just not ready yet, so I don't want to make an album now, rush one when I don't feel ready.
No,
I will make one. That's my long time project. I made an album when I was 18 already under another name that I'm not going to give you, because if you're smart enough you will find it. But I went through a process before, and I used to make a lot of EPs as well. And I believe in a good story, and when it'll be my time to tell mine, I will make a lot of noise with it.
And I like that. And I think when albums are just kind of random selections of songs that you have lying around your hard drive, it's not as compelling as what you're talking about, which is trying to create a journey, create a vibe, create a scene. You know what I mean? I think it's coming back. I base this on nothing, but I just feel like what you're saying, I think albums could make an interesting comeback because we've been so inundated with singles for 10 years now. You know what I mean? And I feel like people are getting tighter with the artists that they love. I mean, look, your fans are connecting directly with you through these streams, through Twitter, through all that stuff in a much deeper way, even than artists were doing a couple of years ago. Right. So, I think we want more from our artists. Or I want more from our artists.
I think at least seeing the EPs format come back, EP and LP would be great.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's about to happen. That's already where I can see a few labels, and from here, while the talks are here, the weather's shifting toward that, which would be great, because really started my industry and my journey in the industry releasing music on EP formats. And it was always 2 to 4 songs, and you have to kind of make a story together. And then recently, with the social media exploding, and Vine, you have 6 seconds to be relevant, and then it's gone. You scroll, your thumb hurts at the end of the day. Like, you can't just put 4 pieces of music. The first one will get 90% of the traffic, and the 3 remaining will have to share the 10% remaining of the traffic. You all know how it is. But I think we're also, when being like, oh, just a single every month, a single every 2 months, everyone being like, oh yeah, I'm so innovative doing that. And I was the same, doing the same thing. And I think, again, we saturated this whole mood, and we want to remind people that the release that we put out means so much to us. And there's a lot of work in that. It's not just shitting a single every month, being like, oh, hey, it's me trying to stay relevant. So I think as we are going into realizing people really, really love and need to be connected with the artist on a more intimate level, I think EPs can make a comeback, because it will allow artists to put more interesting pieces of music that they wouldn't be able to release as singles.
Yeah.
Without
totally.
also having to commit for a full LP album format.
Right. Totally.
You can make an EP with 3-4 songs and still have a deep song and an interlude and such.
Yeah. No, that's true, because it's like you can't make those. Some of the songs, some of the best songs are kind of the deep cuts or the kind of non-single tracks. The
Exactly.
ones that hit you, and you can't do that in a single format. Even in a 2-song EP, it's hard to do that.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I think people are ready to see more up close personal music from artists.
For sure.
They're ready for that.
Awesome, man. Well, Adam, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you, bro.
You're all right.
To the Space Yacht gang.
You're all right. You're all right over there in quarantine. You're staying sane. Everything's all right?
I'm good. Thank God I can cook.
Yeah.
It's a nice restaurant every night here.
Right.
Bro,
I just made some pizza dough before we started this, so I'm gonna be making some pizza later.
I just made some pesto of the basil, the hydroponic basil from my garden. So
delicious.
Life isn't too bad.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks to Habstrakt for being here. If you are not on the tip and know all of his music, go to Spotify, go to SoundCloud, go to iTunes, go everywhere where there's music and look up Habstrakt, and you will then be privy to the situation. Although I feel like everybody listening to this knows who you are, so whatever. But I like to give a shout out. And all right, it's your boy LondonBridge. We'll catch you next week on Yacht Radio. Thanks for listening, and thank you to Habstrakt for being here.
Thank you. Bye.